Episode 50. This week we are continuing our conversation on the man, the myth, the legend, Vic Braden. Victor Kenneth.
5-0, 50. Yeah, let's do this. I think we should have this segment, one more on Vic, and then a wrap up. One thing.
So we're going 3 parts on Vic.
Yeah, one thing with feedback. I think Andy gets stuck. Andy's done amazing helping out GreatBase over the last year and a half.
Just so great.
Awesome. We edify each other.
Amazing.
Actually, Fitzell, you're a bum. With, I get feedback on the podcast and what Andy's doing. I think Andy gets stuck on people questioning the forehand follow through all day long.
Never happens. I never answer any questions.
One of our listeners, a supporter, said that he really liked it when we just have one episode and it's not like, I'll say next week, Vic Braden part 1, part 2. Mm-hmm. So they do lack flow. It can be a little bit disjointed.
What?
Andy has me listen to the podcast, which is not my favorite thing to do. Listen to all the mistakes I make. I hope we're making a little bit of sense. With Vic Braden, the resource, Vic Braden, the man, like even on grips, Vic Braden, the grip is not on number 1, like right smack on number 1. I remember when Vic was on TV and teaching masses of people, a 25-minute segment, and tennis for the future. And then later, Vic's vacant lot. The grip is on the right side of numbers. It's the grip with the least amount of adjustment. So then on the backhand side, someone really turns. And the more they turn, and the racket goes, what we call in the slot, the racket face is closed. But
get the racket low.
It's like with a one-handed backhand, you want to have one grip for both topspin, underspin. You don't want to be changing the grips. Yeah. Again, like we mentioned, like Jim Klein, who I trained Ryan Reedy, and Ryan Reedy does a great job with 2-minute tennis. And he may have done a traveling clinic a couple times, or Vic went to their place in Doylestown, PA. But to actually have worked with Vic. And that's where we talked about Craig Tiley, who took a team from obscurity at the University of Illinois. He left our place at Tennis Tech, the 2-year program for tennis teachers we talked about. And Jennifer Roberts was there. She became the women's coach. And then Craig went in as the director of instruction. Mm-hmm. Is initially, he did not personally know Vic Braden. He'd been trained. And that's where I mentioned in the last podcast, the former CEO of the USTA, Gordon Smith, he read, I was commending Tiley with what he did at Illinois, and it was because he knew Vic Braden, the resource.
Yeah. That's funny because he'll say, the first person I brought in to Illinois was Vic Braden, but actually the first person he brought in was you.
Well, yeah, actually,
correct?
When he first went to Illinois, he went as my assistant. I was running a Labor Day camp for the women. Mm-hmm. With Jeff Piesinski, we talked about Tennis Tech. Jeff from the Chicago area went to Tennis Tech. He spent the weekend visiting with us. We had a 9-hour chat the first day. He came back the next day for 5 more. And we got on the phone with Kim Wittenberg, mm-hmm. who worked for Vic in California, then in Europe. Well, actually, I had it out of order. Jeff first worked for Paul McDonald. So he worked for Paul McDonald the first summer. Then when he graduated for the 2-year program, he went to work overseas for Kim. And the connections are very deep. And Jeff taught for almost 15 years, and he had said he made a career change because of problems with his knee. As a tennis teaching pro, now he teaches math, and he's coaching high school tennis. But it's just amazing that fundamentals stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. And so there's a gentleman I don't know that well, but you see people, hey coach, hi coach, you see him at a tournament or you see him at a coaches conference. J. Webb Horton. I always thought J. Webb was just J. Webb, that J was his first name and Webb was his second name. So Jeff said he's going to go, he's just making some rounds here in Florida visiting people because his wife is out here doing the same thing, seeing some old friends. So she's going one place, he's going the next. So we're lucky to have him come here. So he's going to go see J. Webb Horton. I thought that was just J. Webb. So This is a story that really, I think, summarizes, if you really know Vic Braden, the resource, also Vic Braden, the man, if you really, truly spent years with him. I know no one spent more time with Vic other than his widow, Melody, than you did the last 10 years of his life. So many times I go to a function, like say the USTA, in Florida, it might have been the FTA. I invite all the junior coaches, and there's 50 of us, and we're meeting in Boca Raton. But I make a point of showing up where I have on slacks and dress shoes, so I'm not going to be called out on the court. And it's not because I don't want to hit balls. It's I'm an old man. They don't ask me to hit balls anymore. But people are going to sometimes come on out, tell us what you think. So I kind of try to be low key. So there's like 50 coaches, and there's at least 5 in the room that I've trained. And they get stuck on the grip on the volley. Now, Andy Brandy was in the room, and Andy and I we were younger. In our previous podcast, I worked for Andy. He was 24, I think, and I was 22, give or take. And he was saying Welby Van Horn's the best. I was saying Vic Braden's the best. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I had only been to Vic's Academy. I later went out and worked for him in many different capacities. And then he was telling me Welby's best. So I said, okay, I'll take a attorney or detour and work for Welby. So anyway, we're in this room, and Jose Garris is there. And what Jose Garris, the great player, is number 6 in the world, and he has had so much to do with the USTA. Maybe not as much now, but in years past. So Jose says the grip on the forehand is almost continental. Mm-hmm. And then you get into the composite, it used to be called the Australian grip. And so I'm just sitting there, and the group gets stuck on what grip you volley with on the forehand side. And it becomes pretty much an argument. But if you know Braden, the dimensions of the court and physical laws dictate stroke production, no coach's opinion, any unique theory, Mm-hmm. So I'm finally asked, because one of my students said, why don't we ask Steve? And I stand up, and so anyway, Jay Webb, he lights up a room, and Mr. Personality, very energetic, enthusiastic individual. But I stand up and I say, you turn the racket 8 times, it goes 360 degrees. Everybody with me? Yeah. Now you did 8 bevels, you divide 360 by 8, it's 45 degrees. So every time it's 45 degrees. Yeah. In a true continental grip, when you turn, unless you can raise your elbow, contort your wrist, the racket's not even facing the court you're on. Yeah. And it comes back to Bradenism. The pros don't say what they do or do what they say. So anyway, Jeff and I were laughing because Jay Webb, we get stuck on a point, and he would say, he started calling me the voice of reason. Let's hear from the voice of reason. So then I had to go stand up, but the reason I could do that is I have a very good handle on Vic Braden information. Yeah. Now, coming back to that, Tennis Tech, we used his books as textbooks. So when you're reading the book and rereading the book, and you're testing kids on, chapter 11, okay, let's go to page 36 where it's the variables of topspin versus underspin, and just rattle off the you own the book and then also live it. Yeah. With again, coming back to being disjointed, I mentioned we need to talk about Kramer a little bit. That was Vic's go-to guy. I used to refer to him as his idol, his mentor. I had the chance, best friend, really. I had the chance to, the first time I actually taught in a Vic Braden program, I did it with Jack's oldest son. And then I had the opportunity to teach Jack's youngest son. He was going to go overseas and do a project for Vic, an assignment with Vic Braden Europe. So this is how Kramer thought. Sabatini, who was so athletic, but she tossed the ball way overhead. Yeah. And she actually had too much trajectory on her serve. And loopy swing. I mean, again, love to watch her play. Yeah. And she actually won when she finally beat Graf, the U.S. Open. She was working with Jim Lair at that time. She went forward. Yeah. It was really out of character. It was really not how she played. But in that one match, she was just all over the net. Mm-hmm. But Jack Kramer said, and of course Sabatini is at that number 2 in the world. You've got plenty of money in the bank. But this is just how he thought. He said, well, what she should do is hook up with a junior coach and take a year off and rebuild her game.
Mm-hmm.
She's number 2 in the world. And that was said on TV, and my name wasn't mentioned on TV, but later Vic told Kramer, I know just the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, I've spent so much of my career in Florida, is come down, be filmed. That makes me think of doing a clinic with Jeff Lewis, who you know so well. He's somebody I trained as a player and a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the opportunity to be in the back room listening to Vic. My oldest brother, that's been mentioned, he said, whatever you do, surround yourself by people who've forgot more than you know. Mm-hmm. And when I worked for Vic out in California, I remember, a lot of the coaches would be going up to the gym and shooting hoops or sitting out in the deck eating orange slices.
During the lectures?
I listened to every lecture.
Yeah. We filmed them, everyone,
With, I could tell if
on court and
I get off on a tangent, digress on each thing. But
never.
With
stay on that mic, Rambo. Come on.
Rambo
because of the mic, but also Rambo because you're a one-man army. You can take on 100 players by yourself.
1985.
A couple different
Rambo won.
reasons.
Mike Carter. We need to have a podcast. I'll just tell Mike Carter stories. He was with us for 5 years, and I remember the movie came out. Group dynamics in the 70s, 80s, teaching tennis. You got to bring me back to where I was, though. But with Carter, he used to say, "Here comes Rambo."
Yeah.
You need a whistle around your neck, and it's
Yeah.
like, all right, seriously, it's like 100 students.
Yeah.
In the evening, to have 80 people from the community clinics. You got 180.
That's a lot.
It's like, yeah, we'll make this work. We got 12 courts.
Here comes Rambo.
So where were we?
I don't know. Just keep going.
Trying to make a point.
You lost me, man. Let's just keep going. You got a few notes there.
With here's something about Braden is magic. When I first saw Vic teach, I'd never seen anyone do this before. So someone, say, for example, they have a continental grip on the backhand side. So when they approach the contact point, the racket face is open. Mm-hmm. So if you don't change the grip, you have to change the wrist. So Vic would have the player go from a continental to a backhand grip, just change the grip, not quite 45 degrees. And then Vic would say, well, now the ball's going to go down.
Yeah.
And he would say, well, they have a new grip, but they have the old wrist position.
Yeah.
And, he really, way back when, he just knew the player was programmed. Like he said, well, if they're programmed to play the ball late, I'll just stand behind them and toss the ball where the ball bounces and goes forward.
Yeah.
And the player moves up and they still play the ball late.
Exactly.
No, it's so, so important. And Vic, no substitute for a good beginning. But where we were was with Jeff Lewis. So Jeff Lewis creates a workshop for coaches in Orlando, and Vic had Vic Braden.
Yeah, Star Island Resort.
Vic Braden, Florida. So, the definition of tennis for Braden is hitting targets. So we just added it's running, hitting targets with a score. Mm-hmm. But we skill test. So we feed 25 balls, courtesy feed. I mean, the service box is 21. We did that with tennis math. It's, all the numbers. It's 21 by 13 and a half. So, okay, we're going to feed you forehand volley. It's coming 30 miles an hour. You're standing right there. If you could hit it in this small living room, and then we show, okay, you could put a couch here. Yeah. You could put corner tables. You could put a big screen TV. It's maybe not a big living room, but it's a small apartment. Mm-hmm. So, we let them know they're crummy. And Vic Braden, no one's going to cheat you to the bottom. And it's all really comes, so much of it comes from Braden. When crummy plays crummier, who wins?
No one cheats you to the bottom. You're the worst.
Crummy beats crummier, but crummy doesn't know the crummy. That's interesting. We're talking about that, like our tiebreaker test. That's another test that we do. That's not a test against an opponent. That's just a test against you. That's a test against yourself. That's a test against tennis. Mm-hmm. So they take the 25 shot test and they get 10 out of 25, and seriously, the kid could be ranked in the top 20 of their section. So now they're at 40%, and then we have a tiebreaker test. and this comes from way back, coming back to Kim Wittenberg. We worked with All American Sports, a company that was founded by Nick Bollettieri. Bollettieri and Hopman at one point worked at the same facility. Nick was in charge of adults, Harry in charge of juniors. So you have to hit 6 consecutive shots to score a point. You have to hit cross-court deep and just do it over the service line, cross-court deep. I like how you do it, where you have people hit down the line volley, so they're hitting with better technique, hitting a deep volley over the service line.
On the first volley.
And that's one thing that's great about the 10 and under lines is, okay, if you're really good, let's go over the 10 and under line.
Level 2.
And then if you think about Mr. Hopman or Robert Lansdorf, okay, I'm going to feed the ball Mach 10, but we're just feeding courtesy shots, and kids are 07. I mean, sometimes they don't get past the forehand or backhand. Mm-hmm. They'll take the skills test and not even attempt to hit an overhead because they have to make 5 shots to get 1 overhead.
Yeah.
So Vic used to always say, such nice guy Vic is behind closed doors. You'd be talking about the kid that you just assassed, and Vic would say, that kid's game. What game? He has no game.
Yeah.
He's lucky to find the bathroom.
Yeah.
So what we do is we film players. We film their strokes, courtesy feed, hit down the line, give them the best chance to hit the ball. Vandermeer is so clever. I mean, in his first manual, it said, feed the ball really fast. And then when you do the second filming, feed the ball very slow. So we didn't go that route. It's like, okay, we're going to try to feed a courtesy feed, hit down the line.
Yeah.
But from Braden, we record everything. And, don't teach anyone unless they're a complete beginner. Don't teach anyone unless we film first.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to come back and go, you ruined my game.
Yeah. Plus, it's fun to see the before and after.
Yeah, no, parents certainly like to see the sentimental value of so many things.
Yeah.
It's like when years ago, not so much now, where people were filming matches and selling the film, mm-hmm. and parents would only typically buy. The pros their coach wouldn't even buy it. I'm going, let's buy the tape. It's only $35. Buy a copy of them, and then go home and go to work. But a lot of times the parents would get excited and they would buy the copy if it was a big win.
Yeah.
So anyway, Vic, calling himself Fat Albert, as I said, called him Uncle Vic. So he's in the back of the room, and I'm just, so then we make the film and we narrate the film, and we then it goes to the living room, and you're not in the conversation, which is a good thing. It's just the parents and the player, hopefully both parents. And it's like in slow motion, it's like, here goes, your swing goes 4 feet back, it's 4 feet forward, it's 8 feet of length.
Yeah.
And check your ego at the door when you're going to do some video in slow motion. But actually, Vic loved that. Then you saw the pre-post. But to me, coming back to the magic, so if a person has a forehand grip on the serve and they logically swing straight ahead, mm-hmm. and then you change it to a continental and they're right-hander, you just know the ball's going way left.
Going to the
because
net post.
if you know Braden isms, or I should say Braden information, you have to make the accommodating changes. If you make some adjustments with the grip, you have to make some adjustments with the swing, you have some adjustments with the body.
Yeah.
But no, he was just so curious. I mean, Vic, he used to just have people look through, take a piece of paper, roll it up, and just look through it like it's a telescope, and just look at their feet.
Yeah.
Or just look at the racket. Then, I know you spent a lot of time in his video room. He had the equipment where he could race the entire body, and all you would see, for example, a two-handed player, when you just see their right wrist and the right wrist only.
Yeah.
And you go, does this look like a strong position?
Yeah. I remember, too, when he first started doing, when he went to see Don Budge's backhand, where he just took the 3x5 card and then cut the little squares in it, and then he would look through the little squares.
Yeah, he hitchhiked to Detroit and then was up in the rafters shooting down and almost fell. But very inquisitive mind.
Yeah.
Very inquisitive mind.
Yeah, always trying to find a better way or a more efficient way.
It's like with Tracy Austin. I was in Vic's office. Gene Austin comes in, and Tracy had just won the U.S. Open, and she wanted to talk to Vic about hiring Roy Emerson, and Vic said, he'd be great guy, and he is a great guy. But then when Roy left, Vic goes, I shouldn't have said that. I said I should have said I'd work with Roy, because Roy doesn't know. He was talking about Tracy's serve, and he goes, that's how when Vic was Vic was so big because, I mean, he might have been 5'6", but he was so big because he was just open to change. If he found a better way, he was just open to change.
Yeah.
And that means growth. And so he said, when I taught Tracy, I didn't know the serve. I didn't know how the loop was formulated. And I said that last week, and it might seem so egotistical. And, you know, people might think it's just hero worship on our part. But I said, well, if I'm listening to somebody talk about the serve, I have never, that's a very strong word. I have never, you can learn from everybody, but I've never listened to someone talk about the serve who wasn't either directly or indirectly trained by Braden that realizes how you formulate the swing. You know, when the shoulder goes forward, the opposite equal reaction is the elbow goes back, you know, just like throwing a baseball or football. But, you know, Vic just said Tracy can't serve because when I was teaching her to serve, I didn't know how to teach the serve. And I have a film of Vic upstairs in the library where in the 60s where there's just so much growth where, you know, Vic thought, you know, okay, there's times where on the volley you peel the orange. And he just didn't realize the ball was on the strings 3 to 6 milliseconds. And with when I went to his tennis academy, the United States Tennis Academy, USTA, so I went back 6 months later. You know, I had one in April and one in December initially. And one of my classmates, he was there the first time. It was only the two of us who had returned. And he was an eager beaver. He raises his hand and, you know, he goes out and Vic's working with him on the forehand and he's got a continental grip on the forehand. And Vic didn't say anything about the grip. And I remember I raised my hand and I said, well, why aren't you talking about his grip? And Vic, the guy, you know, was right there, was watching. He was so honest. He goes, I'm not a toad. He was there 6 months ago. He didn't buy into the rationale. He's back 6 months later and he's still got a continental grip. Yeah. And, you know, then he would tell me, you know, you got to push the palm down. Yeah. It's kind of like Lendl and McEnroe on the backhand side. They both had the same grip, but Lendl pushed it down so the racket face was closed. And McEnroe, his racket face was open, he rolled it. So that's one of the reasons that the Mac wanted to go to the net as soon as possible.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going in.
He didn't want to time the roll. I mean, a lot of people say, well, he's Irish, he's got a temper, he's from New York City. And it's like, no, his backhand is like a wave coming off the ocean.
It's physics.
And he's so talented in how he timed it. You know, so Vic Braden, the man, you know, he would definitely work within someone's game. And I remember I actually introduced Tim Gullickson to Jack Ruppel. Tim asked me, he goes, you know, Jack Ruppel, yeah, he's a good guy. He's really into it. This is down in Boca. And I used to go to Boca. I mean, I was, as people know, listening to this podcast, I was a perennial tennis bum of Boca. But when you work in a college setting, talking to Jeff Wyszynski about being a high school teacher, you don't know how good you have it. I remember my mother telling me, this is a great job. You're with young people. I mean, you have a month off in the middle. You're going to Europe in the summer. Yeah. And I didn't listen to my mother. But with Vic, just I think that magic of, you know, knowing what's going to happen before it happens. And so then with Vic, are you going to teach what's happened or teach what's happening? And yeah, I know Vic. I mean, how could you be mad at Vic Braden? But, you know, like McEnroe was upset with him because, you know, McEnroe said he stayed down on his underspin backhand. And
I put that video up, actually. Shows him hitting.
Yeah, no, Jimmy Connors was upset with him where it was one of Vic's partners getting an aerial, and Jimmy would get up on his toes and get blisters on the top of his feet. And Ariel, you know, from Israel, in his English, he said, you know, the slang is spastic to be uncoordinated.
He runs in the manner of a spastic.
Yeah, and Jimmy didn't like that.
Yeah.
With May 10th, 1976, Stone Ages. Why don't you talk about that? That was a big, for me at that time, it was an article in Sports Illustrated, and, you know, it was about Vic and Gideon.
I think just really quick with Gideon and Jimmy Connors as well. When Jimmy was out working on his serve at Vic's Tennis College, and he was doing high-speed film that was costing, I believe, $1,000 a stroke. And so Vic's over there returning serve, and Jimmy, you know, Vic's going, come on, man, hit it. And Jimmy's like, I'm nailing that thing, you know. But Gideon came out, and he was like, who is this guy? You're better than this guy. With Jimmy Connors. That was pretty funny.
With I will build a machine. I will build a. I remember Roscoe Tanner being out and everybody thought Roscoe hit the serve on the way up.
Yeah.
And
Right at the apex.
Just most people just toss too high. And then you think about Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. I saw Roscoe at a junior tournament, and I was going to go up and talk to him, but he was with his daughter, and it was just a confrontation over some cheating, and it wasn't really the right time. But with Roscoe's father, to just find a leaf, or maybe it was his father, maybe it was his coach. I thought it was his dad. Just find the leaf on the tree that you can barely reach and swing at that.
Yeah.
And don't toss any higher.
The broken leaves.
With, Vic spent so much time with players that, again, to be disjointed, Tim Gullickson could have a beer with the boys, and what a great guy. So one time Tim and I, Gully, we're having the morning practice, and Vic, I would be there first, hitting balls. Vic comes out. Well, second practice. So Gully and I are out there warming up, and Vic comes in. And he just does it, the Coda de Gaza pub is right there. And Gully says, "You want to just go have a few beers and talk about it?" And Vic goes, "Yeah, okay." And I'll never forget the Cliff Ritchie story he told, because Vic, he traveled with the Davis Cup team. There's one of the funniest videos. He just put down Vic Braden, Davis Cup. Was it
Arthur Ashe?
Arthur Ashe.
Yeah.
It was in Chile, maybe? It was Mexico? I can't remember.
I think it was Ecuador.
It was on red clay.
Yeah.
It was on red clay. And listeners should just look that up. But Cliff Ritchie.
The captain's going to jump the net. He does not make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ambulance door doesn't shut.
Yeah. The ambulance was too short. I've never seen anything like it.
Now what happens is his sister comes to hug him.
Yeah. She puts his fingernails in his eyes.
Yeah.
And she just decks him.
I was with Vic many times where he showed that at a banquet. He's speaking at some function.
Yeah, he showed that all the time.
Doing the USTA has sections and USPTA, I don't know, did a couple, maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So anyway, Vic was on an airplane with Cliff Ritchie. Cliff Ritchie, he was like an Aussie in the sense that, he didn't go to college. He started playing. And a lot of times, back in those days, like Stan Smith and Arthur Ashe, they were in the Army because of the Vietnam War. And I have a brother who, he was a really good golfer and won the NCAA driving title. Then he found the 19th hole, but he was a really good driver, a really good golfer.
You want to tell the listeners what the 19th hole is?
That's the bar. Low, as they say in tennis, low to high, swallow through. So he quit practicing. But yeah, he went to South Carolina, played golf. But during the height of the Vietnam War, he got papers to go to Vietnam. And my mother, was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
But I remember my saying, I'll write a letter to the general and tell him you're afraid of snakes. But anyway, this airplane. So Vic, to get into Vic, how Vic knew the game. He spent a lot of time around the pros. He ran the circuit. And Jack Kramer, he was all everything. What a great promoter, what he did for tennis. It's obviously now it's come out that he didn't think women should get equal prize money, but what he did for tennis. So Vic's on an airplane with Cliff Ritchie. He said, he's a really quiet guy. And he said, he talked about champions, is that Cliff Ritchie saw a beautiful girl, whether it was, on the airplane. I think it was on the airplane, but maybe getting on the airplane, waiting to get on the airplane. And Cliff Ritchie told Vic Braden, he goes, "I'm going to marry that girl."
Yeah. And he did.
And Vic goes, we got off the airplane, he went right up to her to luggage, and he goes, later they became husband and wife. Yeah. On the toss with Gonzalez had the best serve. And there was a pro tournament in Cleveland, and the pros were saying, hey, it's just not right. Gonzalez is winning everything. Kramer had retired by then. Gonzalez was winning everything. So they had a pro tournament where you only had one serve, and Gonzalez won it easier.
Yeah, easier, exactly.
It
was efficient.
And that's what the beauty of YouTube is you can go and you can watch Gonzalez's serve. Mm-hmm. But Kramer head-to-head, and that's where it really wasn't fair. If you weren't one of the top marquee players, you weren't playing at the big gates. Yeah. But they played the small gates too. They had their bus and they had the tractor trailer and they took the tennis court with them. And I think young players should read about the barnstorming days. I think that's a great thing about Federer is that he said to his agent, Tony Gotzik, it's just not right where Rod Laver, I make more money in one night playing an exhibition than he played in his whole career.
Yeah, exactly.
But Kramer had arthritis pretty bad, but he was so good. And again, every champion has their day, but with I think of Jimmy Connors when we say percentage post, that's from years of watching Connors play tennis. I mean, it was just a predetermined target. He'd take the approach shot, and like a Kramer, Kramer came first, and you think of Gloria Connors, Jimmy's mother was a player, and Jimmy could come in, and of course, having the grip. One of our followers, a supporter, sent me a picture the other day. It was Andres Barbosa, and somebody had told him, a former player said that Connors had a continental grip. I mean, he was beyond 3
On the forehand
side, but Jimmy would come in and pull across the ball and hit side spin. Of course, side spin. He's a lefty, but if say for a righty, it's going to skid off to the right and it's going to stay really low. It comes in with a low trajectory. But it's just, I think I was told Craig O'Shaughnessy. Craig O'Shaughnessy is a name that came up with Jeff Pysinski was visiting his Jeff. Went to work for Kim Wittenberg. Well, Kim's brother Scott, all these different connections. Scott, Kim sent Scott to me when he was 17. I was 23. So I was the young one's coach. So actually I'm working over in Europe and I'm working for Braden. And there's a coach from California who's going to come and join the staff. And I'm waiting, and there's a knock on the door, and open the door, and it's a young one. It's Scott Wittenberg. But Scott and Craig O'Shaughnessy played college tennis together. And then that's where they had this club in a small town in Germany, Barsinghausen, and Dustin Brown started there as a young kid. So it was an amazing thing where Dustin Brown beat Nadal. And O'Shaughnessy said that really launched his career, right. Really got his name out there as far as teaching stats. But with the approach shot, going forward. So O'Shaughnessy has an article on his website called The Brain Game. It's called The Big Lie. And I think he makes a lot of great points. I think he's really good for the game. Dave Fish told me that O'Shaughnessy's a storyteller. Our friend Warren Pretorius, that's where the numbers come from. Yeah. And then, and also O'Shaughnessy, he's great in front of people too. I mean, he's very dynamic, great speaker. And but the big lie is that you can't go to the net. Well, the rackets today, the strings today, and it's really nonsense. It's brain memory. If you're not taught to go to the net and you don't go to the net, you're not going to go to the net. I think that's where there should be a book on quotes from Federer. Good things happen at the net. Yeah. If you can't volley, you won't go to the net.
Yeah, and he's saying it's good for me that players aren't coming in. Because
he said that's
stay around for a while.
That's one of the reasons that he's played so long. Yeah, or he's still going strong. I mean, in it's almost like a 2-year period before Wimbledon, he only played 8 matches. Yeah, some knee operations. I think a little bit more with Vic's facility, Time Magazine calling it the best. Jeff having here as a refresher course for me is, he didn't work at Vic Braden, California, so we're talking about it. I mean, 9 hours, 5 hours, 14 hours of tennis talk. Vic had the big sweepers. You'd roll all the balls in the corner, and then in every corner of the court, there was baskets. And you'd roll the balls. So then you just pick the basket up. And Vic had, you didn't use a ball basket. Yeah. He had customized, I don't know.
Like a cart.
Cart
basically that fit 2 of those baskets.
Heavy duty cart.
Yeah.
And then the Vic Braden feeding, what you call rapid fire. Yeah. I mean, I had some battles over the years on that. That is a stupid way to feed. And because you don't look like a tennis pro. And it was like, okay, I'm going to feed penny on edge. You can look at your student the entire time. You put the racket right in front of you. Yeah. And
the other thing is the trajectory, right? When you're close to the net like that as well, it's more, realistic. The same trajectory as the ball coming in, clearing the net at that close to the highest point, and then
Feeding is an art form, and what Vic would do is just feather it. So you have trajectory, and he's feathering it just with backspin. The ball's very low, so he wants to get the people to get under it.
Yeah.
Vic would do this for our listeners. Is he would, if you really know your subject matter, I mean, I think as a coach, you have to imitate before you innovate. So, okay, you got to get the racket below the ball. So, I mean, Vic would have people close their eyes, the kinesthetic part, go down slowly, and it's so far down to get the racket to touch the court.
Yeah.
Most people get 2 inches below the ball, and they're better off to get 20. So Vic would feather a ball, the racket in front, the rapid fire. The one thing about rapid fire, you can be better than a ball machine. Always, it's like playing a drum to grab 3 balls, boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
3 balls, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Tom Five worked for Vic. What a great guy. He used to do that. Boom, boom, boom. He'd grab 3 balls and go, boom, boom, boom.
I mean, he would say it.
Yeah. So Vic would have people hit a forehand and then not hit the ball, but swing under it. Don't hit this ball, swing under it. And then he'd feed a little faster and a little faster and a little faster. What was amazing to me is Vic would get people to improve. Dennis, I think, he was certainly more of a showman. I mean, they were both fantastic in front of crowds, Dennis Vandermeer. But Dennis would fix somebody's forehand, make it look so much different, like 5 minutes, 2 minutes. And, Vic could do the same, but Vic would say, no, that's not quite it. In studying Braden the way we did, he uses the word no. When he taught, he used the word no so much. Yeah. But if you're smiling all the time, and you go, no.
That's not your knees. That's called your waist.
It's kind of like pet a chihuahua. You're petting a Great Dane.
Yeah.
Get the racket down like you're dribbling a basketball.
What was that? Chihuahua?
Chihuahua. How do you say that? Help me out.
I believe it's Chihuahua, but
okay.
I like Chihuahua.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
What are the names of the gas stations here in Florida? The Wawas?
Wawa. Yeah.
But the facility, you mentioned the lines.
Amazing. The lanes,
The lines on the court itself, though.
Oh, yeah.
So,
sorry, you're always telling me to keep you in check.
Yeah,
so
you do it. Do it.
So when you said lines, I thought, do you mean lanes?
This is like a talk show. I'm drinking water and you got booze going.
Oh, man, I got the sugar-free.
Yeah, over there.
Sugar-free
the first podcast, it was great. I got an email from Greg Smith. Greg was on the staff when I was on the staff, and it was great for Greg. He got a master's in biomechanics, and he sent me some things to look at, and one was his bio because he's had a long career in tennis teaching. Being at the Vic Braden Tennis College, he got his master's not too far away in Fullerton. Mm-hmm. And, here's a guy who was involved with, filming Rosewall and filming Connors. And it was so much fun with what was happening.
Yeah.
Vic, he was connected with Wilson, and he wanted to, like what you said, 40 Sports, he wanted to really get involved in sport research. And I think it was mentioned last week where I think of all the celebrities that I worked with. One was Artis Gilmore, the basketball player, 7'4". Yeah. I think we touched about that. That's where, again,
these never told me I'm too short.
These are a little disjointed where Vic's on the trampoline, the camera fades away, but it looks like he's Artis Gilmore stuffing a basketball than Vic stuffing a basketball.
Yeah. You were talking about the lines on the tennis court. Yeah,
the Time magazine, greatest. I mean, it's just so sad that, Vic is missed and Vic was missed. The Thomas Jefferson, I think he could hold his own in a discussion on politics in America today. Is that, what's good about the Constitution?
Yeah. You could look up online. I mean, those tennis courts, you see the 2-foot passing lanes on the sidelines and the depth markers, and it looked kind of like an hourglass with the passing shot.
And the shape of the swing was on the side of the court, so you could trace your swing. So you'd go to the film court first,
candy canes,
and then you'd go to the geometrically set lanes, and 900 balls in 45 minutes, and that's one thing to really help someone. Vandermeer was a genius at that. Is you take people out of the context of the court, where they're not mesmerized by the yellow ball. I tell people the ball is round,
or the outcome.
The ball is yellow, like the flyaway ball. Where's it going? and be able to hit, hold, and then evaluate. One experience for me with Vic out in Kodo was through Kim Wittenberg. He was teaching at the John Wayne Tennis Club. And it was random. I'm driving down Pacific Coast Highway in the van I live in, and this little MG is looking in the rearview mirror and honking the horn. And back in those days, Tim and I had connected on the East Coast, worked with All American Sports, and a couple of years go by, and there's no cell phones, and so he tracks me down and pulls me off to the side of the road, and then we go to where he's working, the John Wayne Tennis Club. And Ruben Perchek, a Colombian, he started going to school at UC Irvine. And so Kim brings him out to Coto de Caza, so I start working with him. And I remember he went to a junior Wimbledon, and he lost to Tracy's boyfriend at that time, Matt Anger. And, saying, I thought his swings were too big, and it was really amazing. Between Wimbledon and the U.S. Open, we're talking Wimbledon juniors, U.S. Open juniors, he came to Koto full time. And his mom came, and so anyway, Ruben and I go to New York. Vic's there, and because he didn't train with the Colombians, they pulled him out of the U.S. Open. So he's already there. Yeah. Vic was there. Vic was there with the tennis teaching conference, and it was amazing. But Vic, so busy, and he was a superstar at that time. We talked about the talk shows in Hollywood Square and being on TV, and so Vic would walk his big 2 English sheepdogs, and I remember getting a little trouble with Melody because Vic would every night, it'd be like, seriously, he would stop and he just couldn't pull himself away. And I remember Perchek was hitting the ball so well. Danny Cooper, who listened to our podcast, he was somebody who hung around with us and learned to hit the ball better and teach better. And then he was a head pro of a Braden school in Europe. So it worked out where Cooper was going to be in Miami a couple of days before I could get there. And I remember I said, hey, if you go and help Ruben, hang out with Ruben. He goes, well, how do I find him? I said, just walk around the courts. Yeah. You'll find him.
You'll see him.
You'll see. And that's what you're always saying. If someone knows Braden, you can just tell, as soon as the kid, their kids.
Well, let's see how your players hit the ball.
Their kids hit the ball. And
see the swing shapes.
Ruben is Jewish, and one of the Israeli coaches came up and said, you like Braden? Vic Braden at one time, the Israelis used his book as just like you mentioned they did in China.
Yeah. The official book.
Ruben he didn't really he really didn't like playing on the tour. He got to the point where he was playing on the Colombian Davis Cup team. I remember going 3 sets with Martin Haiti and Henrik Sundstrom. He was a really good player. And he went the academic route. At one time, he was on the medical staff at Stanford. Now he's practicing medicine in Miami. But there's just so many different experiences. I've got one down here is 60 minutes. And you got to remember, I'm a young guy. Like I learned that, I guess, being the youngest of 6, or maybe, being on a prep hockey team in New England where I was one of the, I remember being the youngest guy on a team, and it's a little bullying going on, like, hey, shut up. Or when I was a freshman playing college hockey, and freshmen couldn't talk in the locker room. That's for real. It's like, okay. Yeah. But, I knew how to keep my mouth shut, even though being the youngest of 6, I can talk. And I tell people one of the reasons I could talk is I wasn't allowed to talk when I was younger.
Yeah, you can.
But 60 Minutes was going to possibly have a show on Vic. But Vic didn't get on because he wasn't controversial. Now, Nick got on, Nick Baltieri. Kids were staying there and they were getting mail, and they got a letter on Tuesday. They couldn't read it till Monday. It was like you only read your mail once a week.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that today? Kids are checking their text messages like every 5 minutes. Now they got it written. They get this. I'm not really a big fan.
There is no more mail.
Holt Vaughn, great guy. Apple Watch. Buy an Apple Watch. They're awesome. But you see these kids, they're looking at their watch. Someone's texting them, and take your watch off when you're practicing. Buy an Apple Watch, but take your watch off when you're practicing.
Yeah, but you got to get your heart rate. How are you going to get all that?
No, it's all good. But it comes back to 60 Minutes. So the crew comes in, and I'm loading slides in a reel, and it's a shot putter. I should rattle off his name, but it'll come to me. But he was number 1 in the world record. So he's out at Kodo and he's throwing the shot put, and Vic's filming him. And
Gideon was a shot put, an Olympic athlete for Israel.
Yeah, Gideon. He initially went to the University of Wyoming, and he thought he was going to the highest university, but it was altitude, not academics. But with 60 Minutes, I'm just putting all these slides in. It's the gentleman throwing the shot, and he's going through his ritual, and it's like all these photos. And I remember saying to Vic, Vic, don't you think I should just cut these out and just when he really gets right down to the throw?
Yeah.
No, Steve, put it all in, because everything's done on the fly. But I can remember telling Vic, I said, why don't you just get up and instead of all this research and how someone throwing a shot put, Kramer used to tell him that, stick to tennis.
Yeah.
Talk tennis.
Yeah.
One thing I was very flattered one time is Vic was in New York and I wasn't there at the National Teachers Conference. I had to stop going to that because when I worked at this college in Texas, that's when registration was. I during those years, I couldn't go to the US Open.
Yeah.
So Vic speaking in New York, and he said, he used my name in third person, Steve Smith, he's been to more of these than anybody, these teaching conferences. He just keeps telling me, just teach people in these lessons.
Yeah.
Don't talk about
Brain typing
or brain scans. Just say, hey, Bertha, come on out, Bertha. I'll show you how to hit it.
Yeah, exactly.
So with 60 Minutes, Vic didn't make it. He hit the editing floor. That was a big joke when Vic had these TV shows. If I wonder if I'm going to be in this episode. It just seems like every time all this, I hit the editing floor.
Yeah, cutting the floor.
I can remember having a vehicle. Talking about Tennis Tech, Toilet 1 and Toilet 2. It had this old brown pickup truck and then a new white pickup truck, what the students called it. So one of the vehicles, I think it was the older one, we were having little problems with it. And I said, this guy, Steve Young, he's up teaching still in Philadelphia. He was with us for 5 years.
He's a good quarterback for BYU and San Francisco as well.
Actually, I talked to Mark Spann. We need to have a podcast with Mark Spann just about his, like, hey, 10 points from your mom. Ann Shilcutt, she won a Wimbledon title. Just one is later never comes, Ann Shilcutt. That's a great line.
Mm-hmm.
But so with Steve Young, I said, Steve, let's organize this. Let's take my pickup truck to 4 different places and just write down, what they have to say. And I think there's got to be so many honest auto repair people, but and this sounds so chauvinistic or sexist, but if a woman shows up, there's a better chance of the woman getting hustled and they giving them a line of like, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
With tennis teaching, say for example, a kid can have a sprained ankle, a kid can have headaches, a kid can have X, Y, and Z wrong with them. And then it's like, it's the same prescription. Get your racket back, bend your knees, $20, please. Mm-hmm. I mentioned Kramer. Rick Schroeder was on the staff. Rick's father, Ted, won Wimbledon the first time he played it. It was just so much tennis. I mean, remember, Arthur Ashe and Stan Smith coming out to Kodo and they making a video, and they're both, classy guys and so humble. And
Tennis Our Way.
Tennis Our Way, yeah. That's on YouTube.
Yeah.
But off screen, they're just going, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I just put up a video the other day, Arthur Ashe. Slice serve.
I do think that most touring pros, maybe it's because they make a little bit of money now, but most touring pros are, what's the expression, happy in their own skin. I do think that you can reason more with a touring pro about forehands and backhands than you can with a teaching pro. What happens, this has happened with me many times. I remember Warren Pretorius. He's such a bright guy, and I sat down and listened to him at a USPTED conference, and a lot of years had gone by, and I just hung around and talked to him afterwards, and I said, so you hooked up with Braden? And he said that he had spent a lot of time with you and like in Nostrand. And it wasn't so much directly with Vic, but what he said to me, the dumb jock that I am, he said, well, you got it the first time. And because we were about the same age, as he said, he'd get a golden nugget here and a golden nugget there. But what I did is just realize I need to go hang out with this guy. Even if I have to, live in my van and work nights, I need to work for free. I need to be in this guy's corner.
Yeah.
With Sebastian Corda, the top of his serve, you could talk about that. He's got a little bit extra hand motion where the palm turns up. But if people watch him hit the ball, it's like watching a Yannick Noah serve. Or better yet, I'm trying to think of the gentleman. I just come to my name. He was in charge of Stan Frankert. He was in charge of Dutch tennis. Played at USC, and he hung out at Koto. And I remember spending the entire day with him. Vic and I I wasn't working for Vic, but I went out, and there's things that we were talking about doing together. And Stan Frankert shows up and says, I thought I'd just come out and hang out for the day. So we just talked tennis with Stan Frankert all day. If you watch Richard Krajicek hit a serve,
yeah,
I mean, basically, he wasn't the best mover, but he wins Wimbledon. The guy, his game is just right out of a book. I mean,
swing into asses
with the serve, but really all his strokes. And but with but
Sebastian Corda, I mean, strokes.
Yeah,
it's just clean, high, low, high, and simple, and not a bunch of extra moving parts, and little teeny bit of palm up in a little high and left on the toss. But
I think of three young players that are very good players that they should watch Sebastian Corda. That would be Victor Lilov, just in the Junior Wimbledon final. Victor spent almost 5 years with us. And, and he has a following because, if you allow this guy doing it and they see his name and they've watched him. And it was just, his parents, Mark Spann, sent Victor Lilov to us. And coming back to Mark Spann, his mother wins Wimbledon. Angela Buxton, who also won a Wimbledon title. They were two people who really respected when they indirectly Mark, through the tennis tech program, his mother, just changed how she taught tennis. And Angela Buxton, she was sent to work with me for 6 weeks, and she was a writer for the Telegraph, London Morning Telegraph, and wrote an article. I have it somewhere upstairs. Is that she thought, and she was before I went, I thought I knew something about tennis.
Right, remember that.
But I think of Ashton Kruger or Henry Squire. This year Henry Squire played some college tennis, and there's several places he went. His father's an Aussie, great guy. And in fact, not with his son, but with another player, was a really good junior. He was number one in Germany, like Henry was as a junior at various times. Last name escapes me right now, Daria. So Mark Hamlin works with his girl Daria, and David, they brought her to my place many, many times, but there was one time where they hooked up and went out to Vic's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was there actually when they came out.
Yeah, Patrick Gibson. So Victor, he gets to the Junior Wimbledon final, and there's some perspective there because Victor, for quite some time, he's going to practice. Matt Clore is coaching Patrick, so I served really as a supplemental coach. We have film of Patrick Gibson hitting the ball left-handed. Being in form contests, going through hitting the ball with his opposite hand. So I think people like Ashton Kruger, Victor Lillo, Patrick Gibson, Henry Squire. I mean, I saw Henry play this summer, this spring twice with you both times, and he's a big boy now, 6'5", and he needs to go back to basics. It's like you need to stay the course.
Yeah.
And with Henry traveled around the country and know that, not that I really had spies, but people watching him, and Steve. Oh, and young Henry said, well, I think he teaches the game too stiff. And, of course, my associate tells me, he goes, he didn't say anything because he needs to shut up. He needs to stop. And that's Braden, is that, you loosen up after you win nationals. But you still have to stay with the fundamentals. How's it go? You got to dance with, how's it go? Dance with so-and-so, or who brought you to the dance or whatever. People don't grow out basics. I think they're looking for the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
There's so many people that we've worked with that they don't stay the course. They, oh yeah, it really helped. You really helped us out with this and this and that. But there's got to be something bigger and better out there.
Yeah. I was watching a little bit of tennis today, challenger matches, and Vic's liner just hit the same old boring shot or same old boring winner. People try to be fancy and try to have a bunch of variety, and you really, you want to have some different tools in your toolbox, but really it's just hitting basic shots or what are going to win matches. You don't have to be fancy. Yeah, like he would say, losers have tons of variety.
Basic shots.
Winners just hit the same old boring shot.
Basic shots win the match, and the great shots make the highlight reel. With you go from one era to the next. Vic used to have this film of, and we did an amateur effort of showing the same thing, but it was, especially when I was running this college program, I had lab assistants, and now we have people helping us out, but their focus is becoming a better player. It's great to have student assistants where the focus, they want to become a better teacher. So we took, and Vic had this done, but we did an amateur hour. We took Don Budge, Rod Laver, Pete Sampras, Roger Federer. And the rumor is much more exciting than fact. The similarities, Vic will say 90-95% the same. When you think about where someone is at the impact point, like Nastase was very wristy, and Everett wasn't. And at one point, Nastase and Everett, their hair was the same length. So you'd have a silhouette, and you couldn't really tell who it was, just based on where the left arm was, where the right arm was. And
sure,
Vic was very big on when the forehand side. It's kind of like Vandermeer would make you hold a glass of water. Burwash with left hand awareness. But the body's the leader. There's just so many great Braden lines.
Yeah.
You won't go to the net if you don't trust your volley and overhead.
Yeah.
You won't go to the net if you don't value your volley positions.
Yeah.
You won't go to the net if you don't understand statistics. Just pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
Like, say that again.
So goes the backswing, so goes the rest of your swing.
Yeah. I wish that there were beginner tournaments. The yellow school bus pulls up, and, certainly some kid's going to get off the bus and he's going to be a little bit gifted. And, some poor kid, the Vic Braden line is he's going to take the ice cream cone and put it in Mill's forehead. Or they go to the water cooler and they can't make the water hit their lips. And you could teach them to play. It's just going to take a little bit longer. I think people hide from teaching beginners. I know most college coaches, they've grown away from it. And I think to be a really good teacher, you need to work with all levels of play.
Yeah, not that glamorous.
It's it's kind of like watching grass grow. I mean, you have to, I don't think of myself as being patient at all, but I'm persistent. We have a young boy that we've helped out, and I tell the older players, it is such a big deal to me where he goes on an Australian walkabout and he's got this loosey-goosey forehand, and he's just turning 9, but it's like, no, if he doesn't get it right now, when the John Woodenism, when are you going to go back and have time to fix that?
Yeah.
With, an experience for me was great, was coaching Vic. And Vic, one time, he tried anything. I mean, he was open to learning. So he's on this liquid diet. He gets off the low-cal donuts, and he lost a lot of weight, and he turned 55. And I said, all right, Vic, I'll coach you. And I was helping set up practice matches for him. And actually when he would play, he could play. So we know that he was a high school quarterback and a starting card. But also too is that it's so important. I think it is a mistake where parents are always saying, well, my kid, who's in the group? They got to play with better players. You have to just be exposed. You have to be able to watch. Like when I was a kid, I was very fortunate to watch really good hockey players, and it was just at the college level. I mean, it was like, whoa, these guys are good.
Yeah.
But, Vic, he had an open racket face, a little play on the forehand side. I remember sitting on the bench, and he was playing Arnie Luters. And both Arnie's sons became really good players. Actually, his oldest son went off to play at one of the schools in the Power 5 conference, and he he told he had to change his racket face open and cut down his volleys. And I remember, intercepting and intervening and go, no, and the changes weren't made. Actually, Andy Luters, this was a great thing. He comes to Tyler, Texas, and there's a pro tournament, and he wins it. So that really, there was just many things that happened. When Perchek, we're going back, when Ruben Perchek, he came and spent extended periods of time in Tyler. And I remember one time in the lab, I said, well, let's just observe a match. We'll chart it. And, he was just at a different level than the guys on the team. And it was kind of fun because the guys on the team were treating the regular students,
a little bit arrogant.
Tennis techers like second-class citizens. With, I one time was here in Orlando and had a group of juniors, and it was just a long weekend with Vic, and how kids move up and move down. Winners move up, losers move down. Yeah. I'm always telling junior players that I have never seen anyone say, okay, let's spin for side. They don't even think about, well, the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour. It doesn't matter what side I go. I'm looking in the sun. Senior players are always saying, well, when you move up, move down, how do you decide which side you're on? But I remember Vic he was on the end court at the top court. And so he was just coaching the kids who got to the top court, rotate. And kids wanted to be on that top court so bad. And it was just so apparent. One of the girls was cheating so bad. She was cheating so bad to work her way up to this top court. And she was older. And so she gets to the top court, and I said, all right, Vic and I are going to go to the other end now to make it fair.
Yeah, switch.
Go
the other way.
Vic had his thumbs down where if a kid wasn't behaving really well, Vic wasn't a yeller or a screamer, but he would just put go thumb down, Caesar's thumb down, and the kid,
time for a timeout.
And you say, you got to go home, come back tomorrow. With taking Vic to Texas A&M, we had a problem in Tyler, Texas, that the local pros didn't support the tennis tech program. Of course, maybe it was because of the pocketbook, and we had this dollar clinic every Tuesday and Thursday, and 80 people were coming to it.
Yeah.
But what they should have done is they should have jumped on board and started reading Vic's books. They should have listened and learned from one of the masters. So Vic, instead of being in Tyler for a weekend, the entire weekend, we get him to come in on a Thursday. He speaks Thursday night, Friday morning, and then we go down to Texas A&M, which is 3-4 hours away. And the first night, what we used to do is we would talk to the PE teachers, and then there'd be at least 500 of them. Seemed that way, maybe it was 300, but it was an auditorium. It was just packed. It was mandatory for him to go on Friday night. So I made a do's and don'ts slideshow, and it was Clayton Stanley, who ended up playing for UT. His parents both went to Texas. And, we mentioned Clayton during the Tennis Tech podcast. He was our first original guinea pig. So he's like 10 years old, and it's pretty easy when you live in Texas to borrow Texas clothes and A&M clothes from people. So we had him doing everything right. So he's turning for a forehand volley, and he looks like $1 million wearing the A&M clothes. With the Texas clothes, he got a big old floppy cowboy hat on, and those shoes are on the wrong foot, and they're 15 sizes too big. And and he's got a crummy position with the racket. And so we did it stroke by stroke. So I had no idea how successful it would be. And the Aggies are standing up, and they got this dance where they spin in a circle and they stop.
I'm sure they loved it. Yeah.
You know, the Aggie who takes the girlfriend, their fellow Aggie, to the football game, and that's when they get to kiss their girlfriend the first time when the Aggies score. The Aggies just don't score enough. But so people go crazy. So, so I'm taking Vic, and I said, Vic, I got this slideshow I want you to show. And I mean, those are the type of things that are not in the Vic Braden library. There's so many things.
Too bad we don't have that.
With the Braden library. The Braden library, we talked about that. It was purchased by the Tennis Channel. I came up with a price, and it was unfortunate at the time. It just didn't work out. It's been, 7 years since Vic? It'd be 7 years in October that he passed away. And but no, it's. I think it's worth gold. I mean, I think it's worth much more than what was paid. But I know that some of the footage will be used, like it was for Rod Laver in a documentary. Now with Arthur Ashe. But there's so many things that I think in the library.
Like I was saying, it's worth gold to somebody who knows what to do with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's some things in there that doesn't.
Some people call it pile of junk, which is just wrong. With there was a time where Braden at Coda de Casa, the sign actually said Braden Bollettieri, and would have been interesting if that was done the right way. It didn't. It was a partnership that didn't really work very long, but. With what Nick created with an environment, and rightfully so, he's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, Braden got in based on education, but if they had put the two together, I mention this often. I think of the world of what Craig Tiley did at Illinois, and what Ty Tucker has done at Ohio State. And I consider myself to be an insider with both, more so with Tiley, but I think way back Jeremy Wertzman, who, his game was Bradenized, and we have film of it. He's on our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied, and in fact, he came to visit. You helped out in Memphis. We went to work this nonprofit, and Jeremy's there because he's the head coach at the University of Indiana, and they're going to play Memphis. So calling people by their last name, Wertzman is much better than Jeremy, stronger Wertzman. So he's he spent the day with us, but he's got to go in the evening, and his team's got a match. So he's leaving the building, and I said, "Hey, Wertzman, back here." And I said, just take a minute. So let me feed you a few balls. Feed him a few balls. Just hit, hold. He's just got it. Yeah. He went through a period of time where he was not doing so well in the midcourt, though. I mean, he's played great doubles and great singles from the backcourt, but I think a lot of times juniors got stuck where people telling him not to go forward with the brain cramp, senior moment. Help me out. It's your job.
Jeremy Wertzman?
But I was going to tie that together with something now.
Just the fact that, he had the strokes. He'd been Bradenized. You were talking about that. Yeah. And Ty Tucker and Illinois.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks. Here you go. Good. Bring me back. Bring me back.
You can get the culture of toughness.
But with some
information.
Those two gentlemen, Tucker and Tiley, they went about coaching. They've won so many Big Ten titles different ways. So just like when Braden and Bollettieri were connected at one point, in some ways that could have been a beautiful thing. That you need the whole package. And it comes back to, I was telling Kim Wittenberg I talked to just the other day, we go way back, and I was out in California running this workshop, and Elliot Telscher, he's in the room, and I go, tell me when I'm wrong. And I use Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, and Daniel Coyle's book, The Talent Code. And so many things went right. Tracy Austin's mother at the Kramer Club. She's running the pro shop. She's an ENTJ. She's organized. She's got people playing practice matches and this and that. They've got a players lounge. And, but it was so good to have the Braden background first and the Lansdorp background second. Yeah. then what happened from that is, you think of, Lindsay Davenport, who came in after that, but, success breeds success. Like something's right here.
Sure.
With Elliot Telscher, he was top 10 in the world, and Sampras is 17, and he rocks up at Indian Wells, and he beats Telscher, but he had no off factor.
Yeah.
Because they grew up the Kramer Club. I think of Ryler DeHart, a very good player we worked with. I took Ryler to Vic. And Ryler's a really easygoing guy, good guy. People really like him, and he really he's a lefty, but he'd really open up on his forehand, and he'd let his opposite arm fly. And I remember him, Vic saying you should go 2-1-2, and you need to use that,
catch the racket on the fall through.
Use it like a reactive break. The body can't spin open. Dimensions of court.
Yeah.
All the rationale, like bing, 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 boom, boom,
racket
boom.
will go 1.5 times faster.
So I remember Ryler. He's a young kid. This is before he went to college. He said, "Well, I don't like it," and Vic goes, "Oh, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine.
No, you don't have to do it."
that's the psychologist. That's the soft science.
No, you don't have to do it.
Is that so? Meanwhile, there's a break before we go to dinner. We all go out for a spaghetti, and I get the guy in the room, and he was a hardship case kid. Did great. I mean, I raised money for him to go work with Vic, and I go, DeHart, sit down. When Vic says it's okay, he's going to tell me, kid's a little dumb, huh? But he wasn't. He wouldn't hit him over the head with a hammer. Vic and I used to talk about that. I was flattered. He said, "Steve, we missed the boat. We should have been running camps with ISDPs and ESDPs." And I said, "Yeah, Vic, this is how it should work. As you go forward with a flashlight and make all these new findings, I'll go backwards with a club and hit people over the head. Did you get it?" Yeah. The governing bodies of tennis in this country, they really should police tennis teaching in the sense that, so you can tell I'm not for defund the police. We need to police tennis teaching where they evaluate the competency of referees. The governing body of tennis should be able to govern, is this a competent tennis lesson, just like with medical standards. But that's where, again, I'm a member of the PTR, I use PTA, I've been a tester for both. I think I'm in a position to say, hey guys, you need, you're spinning, we're working on this new certification. Again, repetitive. It's Scott Schultz saying, well, Steve, we're putting a committee together. And I go, no, there's this guy named Braden.
Yeah, it's all right there.
It's like the U.S. Constitution. It's okay, guys. It's a pretty good document.
Yeah, the foundation is good.
But why don't we do this with, I get so many thoughts here, is that one thing was cool. I know you spent a lot of time in Germany, the Vic Braden tennis schools. John Newcomb, they did this. Is you don't see it so much anymore, is they put the logo on the top of the indoor building. So, they take an aerial shot. It looks pretty cool. But
yeah.
But I think we should go through more of the research, like the digitizing and the biomechanical screen sketch. I think, one more go with Vic. But why don't you go with a few other things, like, with some questions that you've got or...
Well, I know people wanted to talk about myths a little bit. We've touched upon a lot of myths, in different episodes. So we could say just go back and listen to the episodes on fact-based tennis instruction and forehand, backhand, serve, volley, underspin, overhead.
Oh, there's new myths too, like follow through to your pocket. Over the ball, under the ball, toss high, scratch your back, stay down.
Yeah. It was tough for Vic to watch. I mean, we spent 9 years together filming for the 3D stuff at the Indian Wells tournament, also the LA Open and the Acura Classic, which was a WTA event. And it would drive him bonkers just to watch how tennis was being played, where people would just not get to the net. And the way that people were trying to hit the forehand, where it was like, well, it's impossible to get to the net because their center of gravity is so far off that, they have to get that eighth of a second to a second, get their center of gravity had to get forward. So you just saw the way people were hitting the forehand was not giving them that option to get to the net, and then also causing some injuries, with hips and wrists and stuff like that. But for him, it was kind of boring. When we watched tennis, sometimes it was like, It's kind of boring.
Well, clones taught by clowns. I was with Vic at the Easter Bowl one time, and he said, Steve, if they're losing, they just have to mail in the scores. In other words, they have no options.
No options. Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
I think with our body of work here with these podcasts, David Secker was out in Memphis, and young girl, Sophia Patel, she's on the team at the University of North Carolina. And Matt Clore spent the most time with her in the beginning, but I spent a ton of time with her. Sophia, and she can hit volleys, she can hit overheads. And I remember him just saying, because he watched her play and doesn't go forward. And it's fun to hit volleys and overheads with.
Yeah. No, the research, we talked about a little bit, 40 Sports, Gideon Ariel, coming in as a partner with Vic, and then, the machines, the APAS system, the aerial performance analysis system, all the pros that they, tennis, but also just different sports. So, all the biomechanics and all the, motor learning specialists, Dr. Richard Smith, obviously Howard Brody, tennis physicists, so many different people that Vic worked with, partnered with, John Niednagel with the brain typing.
I think Schlesinger or Salinger, in 1980, I had only seen volleyball as a PE sport. My sister, I remember going to some of her volleyball games, and it just wasn't fair for women back then, but they had a little budget money. They played some matches at the Tri-Valley League high school, but it was, I think, Flo Hyman with the 1980 Olympic volleyball team lived at Costa de Caza.
Yeah, they trained right there.
And, I lived at Costa de Caza. A lot of most of the staff had to drive down the hill. We're up in the canyons, and I was living in the parking lot. So I wasn't going anywhere, but just Vic was right there. They were filming these athletes, and there was actually a girl who was very tall. She was a walk-on who lived at Costa de Caza. She was on the team. It was just phenomenal, her development.
Yeah.
But, I think that's a problem in tennis is that there's no connection between the bench and the brain.
Yeah, I say that often.
With, so volleyball, this is how you're going to do it, or you're not going to play.
Yeah.
You're going to sit right here and get splinters on your behind for too much wood on the bench. And, I think that's where mom and dad, they cross their fingers and they just take their kid to another tournament. And, you really need to take serious time. The more people are open, the faster they can change. Obviously, some people are, I say, naturally more gifted. Learning comes easier to them. But it's like if someone wants to do math, they don't have to have a mathematical mind. They may have to work a little bit harder. But so that's like throw the word talent out the window.
Yeah.
So I was there when the research center was built, and it had a track around it, court in the middle, the force plates, and
beautiful court
with, but physics. Physical laws. It stands the test of time. It's the science behind it. But I just think that we get pigeonholed. We talked about Vic going out to work in it's a very well-known place. They do well in so many ways. The Championship Tennis Center, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. And with, the last time Vic was there, they had him, pretty much talking to younger kids. And again, we touched upon it. I think of the world of what Mitchell Frank accomplished as a player. He won everything. And same TFO years later came out of there, and what an amazing personality, and that just comes back to like Jack Kramer saying about Gabriel Sabatini, and again it's repetitive, it's a pound the point home. So TFO wins the Orange Bowl at 15, and I heard on a podcast that they did take him away from competitive play for a while, but most people don't change, with. Like say Kim Wittenberg's making the point yesterday, we got to get Kim unplugged, unleashed on a podcast. Is Rai Opelka and John Isner. I haven't been around Opelka as much, but I remember being at the USTA place when he was 12, and they're trying to, it's like, okay, this boy's going to be tall. Two guys that went to Illinois, the Zeter brothers, Nathan and Evan. So I spent like an elevator ride with Nathan, helping him out, but I helped Evan transform his game. And John, their father, is, he's got a duck to walk through the door. I mean, he can't live in a house with 8-foot ceilings because I think he's 9 feet tall. But, he goes through a junior development program for years and years. It's kind of like with Novotna, who was a gymnast, and her mother used to take her to practice. And then the father was really tall, took her to practice, and the Czechs, there was a meeting and go, she needs to choose a new sport. She's going to be too big. Mm-hmm. Well, if your dad's dropping you off at practice and he's 6'6", you probably should have the kid venture to the net a little bit.
Yeah.
So with Isner, my son spent a lot of time with Isner. I mean, I've watched him so many times at Saddlebrook. One time I was with Austin Krajicek at Saddlebrook, and they set up a drill where you had to go forward, and Isner yells out, "Krajicek, you should win this one," because he volleys better than the rest of them, the people who were there. But can you imagine Sam Querrey and John Isner? They're playing doubles together. They're just hitting bombs.
Yeah.
And they're both playing one up, one back.
Staying back, yeah.
And then you were in the room one time. It was a post-match conference, and they'd gone 3 sets and pushed the Bryan brothers to the brink, and someone raised their hand, "Oh, shouldn't you guys go to the net?" And they're both very defensive. They say, "If we go to the net, there's no way that we go 3 sets." And they're 100% right.
Yeah.
But that's
better
not,
chance to hit a big forehand than what
well,
they can do
but
with
that's
their
not
volley.
really the answer. The answer is when they were younger. So I can remember meeting with Paul Roeder when he was with USTA years ago. And I said, you don't want the Sam Querreys of the future to volley like that.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's not a shot against Sam Querrey. I mean, the guy's making $20,000 a week playing tennis. I mean, I understand he's built a home that's worth a few $1 million, but he could have been better. That's where, just to speculate, like say the young guy from Argentina, Juan Del Potro, great player, but if he had been taught, he's a big man, but he's not that acrobatic at the net. We sing Sebastian Corda's praises, but I think of Craig O'Shaughnessy. I think what he's doing is great, but you just have to go back to Bill Jacobson. No one's reinventing the wheel. Yeah. It's not like, analytics are new. Mm-hmm. And, in Warren Pretorius, the real analytics need to go back to Braden. Grip, swing, and body. Yeah. And there were so many similarities between, say, Welby Van Horn, Dennis Vandermeer, and Vic Braden. A lot more similarities and differences. The thing with Vic is he ended up having the rationale. Yeah. Because of what he did with high-speed film, and then the community that he created. I mean, he surrounded himself with people who, it's like, Pat Keating, a physicist, this is where research and practice are so greatly removed. I mean, and I've grown away from that. I used to teach this class, Scientific Approach to Teaching Tennis, and you don't want to wing it. So 5.5 miles an hour times the square root of the height of the loop equals racket head speed. Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
But I think the point of that too is that, you got all of this information, and then how the art of it is, how do you make it practical? How do you get somebody from A to B? And that's where all that stuff came in, with the brain type being motor skills, and, the psychology that Vic has, his background is how he would communicate with people and simplify things. And
I think the most fun I ever had in a science class was the egg drop in physics. And I know one kid, he boiled his egg so it couldn't break. Another kid, he went to the cafeteria and he stole as much aluminum foil as he could, and I did this thing with rubber bands and a box and popcorn. But the problem is that it wasn't whether your egg broke or not. The physics teacher said, "Yeah, but tell me why." Yeah. Do the math. Tell me why. And it's like, that's where, you keep telling me I need to see Star Wars. When Braden's first book came out, it was referred to as the Star Wars of tennis.
Yeah, right around the same time.
But thank you, Uncle Vic. I think we'll go through one more time, and I do think then having to review our 52nd week, and we can take a different direction with our podcast. But I think this first year, We have really tried to let people know the validity and the history behind the GreatBase. I'm excited, like say Jim Blair, he was pleased to hear what we had to say about his contributions to tennis. And, we're scheduled to interview Jim and Jack Groppel. And I mean, Jack Groppel will have, I think we need to just solidify, again, a lot of these coaches that we've trained, I don't think that we should be a magazine and let's interview someone new and let's get a new twist on things. Let's just keep pounding the nail straight and just try to get better with communicating just core basic information. Yeah.
I think going back with Vic and research and things like that, we've covered so much throughout the podcast and the different episodes, so you could definitely go back. But I think for the next episode, I'll definitely get some more questions. Some of them we've answered already.
Yeah,
some more questions that what do people want to know or hear from Vic, or stories, or
someone who's really hungry. Hungry dog hunts best is a young guy, Raleigh Grossbaum. He's a graduate of Ferris State, and he had the dubious pleasure of hanging out with us in the School of Hard Knocks. And I asked him, I said, "You listening to the podcast?" He goes, "No, well, there's so much else." And I said, "Son," Jimmy Cotter's Jack Kramer, "Kid," that's how he used to talk to people, "you need to listen to the podcast." I said, "With us, you're in your junior year. With you're a freshman, you're a sophomore." And again, with information from all these different pillars, especially with Braden, it's just a higher level understanding. Books are still available. You can find them. And you don't have to be side by side with Braden. If you start to get a good handle on the information, once again, you learn from yourself, you learn from your students, you learn from your experiences. Experience is the best teacher. When you have a handle on Braden's methodology, and he's the first one to say it's not the Vic Braden method. Einstein and Galileo
were here. Physical laws,
Einstein and Galileo were here before us. It just is so crystal clear. The string should go towards the target. You should have a longer hitting zone. The racket goes high, low, high, inside out. Your body, all your forces when you're hitting a serve, you're a right-hander, everything's going out at a 45-degree angle.
You can't violate physical laws.
You can't shoot a cannon from a canoe. You can't drive a car over a bamboo bridge.
You can, but you might sink through.
The light's on, but nobody's home. The elevator doesn't reach the top building. Somewhere there's a butterfly flying around inside their head. To me, it makes no sense for everybody to just keep putting their own 2 cents in. I mean, opinions are like noses. Everybody's got one. There's the Vic Braden, eliminate the guesswork. I mean, there is so much guesswork, and the lessons are dumb and dumber. So the socioeconomic functioning levels. If someone can afford a tennis lesson, I always ask the tennis kids, "Do your parents have a money tree in the backyard, or are they spending money for you to play this sport?" It's important to be spot on. So Vic, you would say, eliminate the guesswork, and don't, I mean, people are just making it up as they go along. I mean, are you really telling people to hit the forehand that way? And what do you say? There's 20,000 hits on the forehand.
Yeah, you Google modern forehand, you'll get pages and pages and pages, but there's not so much on the modern backhand volley, serve, approach shot.
Nothing else.
Drop shot.
Nothing else is modern.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. And we'll continue the conversation briefly next week, part 3.
Because you didn't do such a great job keeping me on track this week. Next week,
oh my gosh,
you do all the talking, and I'll try to keep you on track.
No notes next week.
No notes. No notes.
All right.
I don't need notes. I could talk about Vic without notes.
All right. Thanks for listening. And as always, you can find us online, greatbasetennis.com, social media at GreatBase Tennis. Check out our different social media platforms.
You don't like notes?
I like to wing it, you know?
Like to wing it.
Yeah.
With that's what, certainly talking to Jeff. And
There's definitely a lot, though, to cover. So,
yeah,
we could go on for hours and
yeah.
hours.
In the end, it's like, hopefully we can, in one more episode, feel like we've honored the late, great Vic Braden.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Adios.